everyone. How are you doing? My name is Brigitta Toruño, and welcome to Uno Soul's Chat. Today, I am so honored to be chatting with Leah Rampy, and she is an Uno Soul. She is a writer, a speaker, a retreat leader, and educator who weaves ecology, spirituality, personal stories, and practices to help others deepen their relationship to the natural world. Leah is a frequent speaker on contemplative leadership and spiritual ecology for these edge times. In 2022, Leah was elected by write-in to serve on the Shepherdstown Town Council, and she holds a doctorate in curriculum from Indiana University. I'm going to go ahead and tell you all much more about Leah because her bio is amazing, and I just want all of you to know more about Leah. So I am reading, but I need to honor her words and what she's done. Leah co-authored and co-facilitated with Beth Norcross the 6-part video series on the spiritual wisdom of trees, Insights from Our Elders, in collaboration with the award-winning filmmaker Jane Pittman, and sponsored by the Center for Spirituality in Nature. Leah and Beth are co-authoring a book on the same topic to be published by Broadleaf Books in early 2025. Leah has led over a dozen pilgrimages to sacred places in the U.S. and internationally for the Shalem Institute for Spiritual Formation, where she previously served as the executive director and continues as an adjunct staff member. She is the founder and leader of Church of the Wild Two Rivers. Through Shepherd University's lifelong learning program, Leah teaches classes on ecology through the lens of current writers, and her essays have appeared in the Anthology of Appalachian Writers, the Barbara Kingsolver edition, the Cardinal Anthology Volume 1, and Soul Food, Nourishing Essays on Contemplative Living and Leadership. And she recently authored the book, Earth and Soul, Reconnecting Amid Climate Chaos, which is being published by Bold Story Press and will be available in early 2024. And we will be chatting about that. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you, Brigitta. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. It's my honor. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah. A little mystified as to whether it's autumn, winter, spring, summer. We're having all of the seasons in rapid succession these days. So.
And all in one day sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I am thrilled that we're getting to chat just as you are about to launch your new book, Earth and Soul. Tell me, why did you decide to write this book?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I really want to pause and say it's just such a delight to be with you and such an honor to be a part of Uno Souls. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes, why did I decide to go on this journey? So, I have been interested in climate change and how I might be somebody who could be an activist for improving the way that we live in this world. So our family have been kind of activists over the years, and my daughter and I were trained by Al Gore to do his slideshow back in 2013, which you probably know from the movie An Inconvenient Truth. It's a very powerful slideshow, and he trains thousands of people to be able to go out and really share with the rest of their friends, neighbors, communities what's happening, because it feels like, in spite of the decades that climate scientists have been telling us, warning us that we need to get to work and attend to this particular issue, it seems to fall to the bottom of our conversation many times. So my daughter and I went off and we did a lot of informative slideshow presentations. People seemed very impressed and concerned by what they saw. We, along the way, learned a lot more about biodiversity loss and the loss of ecosystems. And still, it didn't feel like there was a lot of traction for making change. Mm-hmm. So, I have a lot of background in education, and I was an executive coach for a decade. And it made me wonder, what is getting in our way? Like, why are we not taking this seriously? And why are we not getting, our full attention on this incredibly important existential issue? So that's what I set off to try to discover, like, what's underneath our reticence to change, what needs to be changed. And then I found that was a real journey for me. So it was not just, what's wrong with those people out there, but it became a real soul journey to figure out, what does it mean to try to look at this from a spiritual perspective and not strictly as an intellectual effort of change.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Thank you for explaining that. And I mean, I actually remember when you and your daughter 10 years ago went and did that training and were able to spread the word, so to speak, about this important topic. I was wondering, who do you see as the audience for this book?
Yeah. Well, so my passion now is offering retreats. That's what I do mostly in the world, that center on how we reconnect more deeply with Earth. And so the people who participate in that started out to be my most important audience, because I felt like we would spend 3 or 4 days together. And then what? And then what? How did those people get the support and the community necessary to move forward? To hold the grief, as well as to be, in a place where they could have their hearts open large enough to hold all of what was going on. So it started out for those people who I knew well. And then I saw that there were many people who were activists in the climate community who were brokenhearted because they had worked so long and so hard and so put so much of their love and life into these issues. And, they were not having the impact that they had hoped for. So I thought about them. And then I thought about people who have expressed concerns about their children and their grandchildren and what will their life be like. So I started including them in my audience, and it sort of spread to people who are hearing this. We lived through 3 months of the hottest months on record in quick succession there: July, August, September.
That's right.
And so it becomes sort of like, how could you not be aware that there are real issues in our state of the climate, state of the earth? So I started writing for those people who were like, wow, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
That was long, but that's where it kept growing.
Well, yeah, thank you for explaining that, how it did grow. And I mean, really, the way I see it, the audience is every single person that lives on this earth. It's such an important message. All of us need to be paying attention to this. Yeah. So thank you.
I will say, Brigitte, I will say one thing about that. I addressed this in the introduction, but I am stating that climate change, biodiversity loss of ecosystems is here. It's real. It's not going away. We have to face it. And I am not spending the book trying to convince people that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So there are plenty of books that have been written about this, and plenty of wonderful speakers and, videos to educate people on what's happened over our lifetimes. I'm saying it's here. So now what?
Now what? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, because we used to talk about how climate change would impact our grandchildren. And I have 6 of those. So it is something, right, that I've thought about. But after the heat and storms of this past summer, as you just mentioned, it seems that we right now are being impacted.
Yeah.
So is this true? And if what can we do about it?
Yeah. So yes, it's true. It's here. It's heartbreaking. And if we haven't fully faced into the impact yet, it's because we are in a privileged position in perhaps a privileged location, because there are plenty of people on Earth who have experienced the devastating impact of floods and fires and other intense weather phenomena that are exacerbated by the rising level of CO2 that's risen so rapidly in our lifetimes. And of course, I want to be, even though the book says it's about climate chaos, I want to be clear that within that, I also think it's incredibly important to note the loss of forests that is moving rapidly across and around this world. And that will be devastating to all of us, our children, all the plants and animals. It's a loss of ecosystems. We didn't know how important swamps and bogs and marshes were to capture the water flow and to purify the water. And so, somewhere along the line, we thought draining the swamp was a good thing to do, rather than to really see that it was a critical eco function for us. So yes, it's real, it's happening, it's here now. I wrote a blog a few weeks ago on the terms that climate scientists are using now to talk about what's happening in this world. And it starts with the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports, where they keep talking about unprecedented heat, unprecedented loss of ice, unprecedented. And then they write about this summer. And I'm sorry to be laughing because it's not funny, but one scientist said, this is absolutely gobsmacking bananas. They've run out of words. They've run out of superlatives, code red climate emergency. So climate scientists have been trying to get our attention to tell us that it's here. Ajita, half of the songbirds in the United States since 1970, half of them are gone.
Wow. Yeah. I read that in some of what you sent me, and that's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just, it's also important for us not, I think the so what often seems like, well, part of the so what then is we better get busy because humans are at risk. That's true.
Yeah.
What's also at risk, I think, is our deep spiritual connections to the living world around us. Those have been frayed over the decades. Those have been frayed by a sense of human exceptionalism, focusing on what's best for us at the expense of all other beings. Our hubris at thinking we know what's best, and how the world should be managed, as if the world evolved to be managed. And also our continued sense that technology will save us, that this is about finding maybe a better planet. We'll use this one up and then we can find a different one that might support us. So there's a lot in there. Let me pause a minute. So we can see if this is making sense. And if you want to, if you want to lead in one of those directions. I threw a lot at you, maybe not the kitchen sink, but close.
I think, what I'm hearing you say over and over is red flag, red flag, red flag. We have to pay attention. We can't just look away from this. But what are some tangible things that we can do? Maybe if you name one or even two, of what can we do to help right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to answer that in two ways. One is, I think we look in our own backyards and we start there with anything that we can tangibly do, which might be to replace a large portion of our lawn with wild native plants that are supporting the pollinators, the bees, the insects. It might be buying local food, growing our own food so that there's less transportation costs. We might be eating in season. We could go on and on, reducing plastic. There's so many things we could do, and we can get overwhelmed with that and then feel that whatever we're doing is too little and it's for naught. So a part of this is simply to choose something that feels important, that feels like we can contribute and make a difference. The bigger challenge for us, I think, is the spiritual journey that needs to accompany that. So in my view, we are less than who we are called to be when we live as if humans are meant to be isolated from the rest of the living world. So a big part of what I'm inviting people to do is to attend to a soul journey, to return back to the depths of who we are and to reclaim that purpose, that soul purpose for why we're here. That's SOUL purpose.
Mm-hmm,
that
right.
soul purpose for why we're here. To really understand that, and then to listen deeply to what the living world is inviting of us, because we make such huge mistakes when we march into a situation thinking we have all the answers. So I want to give you one thing really specific, because you mentioned your grandchildren. And I know they're near and dear, beautiful beings, but follow their lead, because children outdoors are so connected to the living world. They are so mesmerized by all of the facets of bugs and plants and rocks. I've got to believe some of your grandchildren are collecting and giving you rocks, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. I've had plenty. I've received plenty.
Yeah. But if we could tap into that, that awe and wonder is innate in us.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's absolutely available to us when we get out of our busy minds that are leading us into the future, pondering over past, and be present. Be present and open and available to the world. We will be stunned by the miracles all around us, the beauty, the delight that we will feel, the awe and wonder. And that takes us out of our little selves. That's the joy of wonder and awe.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Leah. And those are wonderful suggestions, all the way from doing the little things that we can in our own yards, or maybe it's even a balcony, right? If people are just a balcony and have some flower pots that, I would let you speak to what that would look like, because not everybody has a yard. But then maybe there are community yards. Now you're in a beautiful community yourself in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, with the cohousing, and if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so yes, there's lots of threads here. I feel like we could talk about this for days, but let me pick up a couple of those threads. I often do end up doing retreats online on Zoom, particularly during COVID. We were all
I attended some.
we were all doing that. So one of the things that I often invite people to do is go out and sit with a small space in their yard, or if they can't go out, to look out a window at a tree and just to spend an incredible amount of time, and by that, I mean 30 minutes to an hour. We're talking about, that sounds maybe silly out of your life, but boy, that's hard for people to set aside. If you can't do that, because this is a testament to the beauty of what is all around us. If you can't do that, go to your veggie drawer in your refrigerator. Take out a head of cabbage, take out the broccoli, take out the cauliflower, pick one, cut open your head of cabbage and see what that really looks like when you're present to it. So I am all about being out in botanical gardens and community gardens, in arboretum, wherever you can be outdoors, parks. For me, the wilder, the better. But people start where they are and they do what they can do. And for sure, you could plant milkweed in a container on your balcony for the monarchs who may be passing by, or you could plant a beautiful flower that gives you joy. The reason I keep coming back to awe and wonder is because I think when we start looking at what's going on, there's also a tremendous amount of grief and loss and sorrow that will well up in us if we are open, present, if we're looking at the real just as it is, we stay that course, then our hearts are going to be broken open.
Yeah, I love that. You include quite a bit about loss and grief in your book. And most of us, we want to tend to avoid those topics. And why highlight them in your book?
Yeah. Well, so that's a really good question, and I'm sympathetic to it. And I also want to be clear that this is not a call to go sit in front of CNN and do endless dives into the horrors of the day. That's not what I'm speaking about. We all need to take care of ourselves in ways that are really important all the time, and particularly when we're feeling more fragile. So put that into the context. If we are to see what is happening around us, so that we might work with the earth in her desire for healing. If we're to really understand what that is, we have to be able to see what's being broken. And when we look at the broken, if we really sit with it, we're going to feel sorrow. You know how that is. That's like sitting with someone who's crying and you feel that well up in you, because when we come from our hearts, we are empathetic. That is how we're built. So I'm going to suggest to you that's not a bad thing, because when our hearts are more open to grief and loss and sorrow, which is also the truth of what is, then our hearts are also open to the delights.
Yes.
I don't think you can just choose. I will be open and available to this set of emotions, but I will close myself down to the rest of these.
Absolutely, Leah.
I think we work that way, Brashida.
I know. Yeah. And it's been a long lesson for me to learn about, being open to grief and sadness and to work with those emotions, to not push them away. But it's definitely a process to learn. And I think that you're right that nature does teach us that.
Mhm.
Nature goes through all of that itself,
Yeah.
all of the emotions, right?
Yeah. There's a wonderful author I enjoy, Trevi Johnson, who takes people into areas that are devastated, let's say a clear cut of a forest. And the intention that she invites them to is to find the beauty that's within, that is within that particular situation. So we can say both of those can be true. Not only are we opening ourselves to our senses, really, we kind of lost our senses somewhere along the line and felt like it was all about our thinking minds, our brains, our rational, logical. But we open to our senses, then we are going to be able to be in tune with all of that.
Yeah.
Let me say another reason why that's important. How do we connect to the living world? It's not going to be through language. It's going to be through our senses. So, yeah. So if we want to, so much of the world has been here. I mean, trees have been here hundreds of thousands of years longer than, they're in the several 100,000 and humans are in the tens of thousands. So their evolution has been significantly longer. They have lived through so much and passed that on from generation to generation. Yeah. Why would we think that there is nothing to be learned from them?
Exactly.
Indigenous peoples have taught us that that the living world is kin. And that we are the younger relatives. We have a lot to learn. So, there's a lot to be said for slowing down, opening to it all, tuning into our senses, feeling what we feel, and seeing where that might guide us.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Leah, and including the awe and wonder. Yeah, that's beautiful. Leah, do you have any next writing projects?
Well, yes, I do. Did you notice how skillfully I brought up trees there? It's fun for me to talk about trees. My colleague from the Center for Spirituality and Nature, Beth Norcross, whom you mentioned, and I have been for 3 years now leading this class that we wrote on the spiritual wisdom of trees. And so we are working now on a book that we're really thrilled to be working on, because again, when you're writing, you're digging in more. It's kind of easier to offer a class and to be able to engage in the back and forth. When you don't have that other person there, you're like, wow, I have to write all this down.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So we will have a book that comes out in early 2025 that we're working on now.
Wonderful.
To be published by Broadleaf Books on the spiritual wisdom of trees, learning from our elders.
That's wonderful. So it's all interconnected to this book that will be coming out soon, right? The Earth and Soul.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very specific, Earth and Soul is a real call. It's a real call to connection. So for me, in a way, that's a prerequisite. Yes. How do we connect to the living world? And it, it will help heal us. It will help sustain us.
Yes. Well, this sounds like a very important book, Leah. Thank you so much for I'm going to say birthing it, because I think it's very important. It's very it's of utmost importance.
Thank you.
For the world, for Earth. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, it feels important to me, and it was an important soul journey for me to write it. So
yes, wonderful. And if people are interested, where can they find your book?
Sure.
And more about your work.
Yeah. Well, I have a website, with the really hopefully easy to remember name, leahrampy.com. So
Great.
you can go there and you will see I continue to offer a number of retreats. Those are noted there, as well as some of the previous writings that you mentioned. And you can sign up to follow. My plans are to have a little newsletter that will have a bit of writing, but also announce events. So you can sign up to follow. And I'm also on Facebook at Leah Rampy Writer and on Instagram, Leah Rampy.
Oh, great.
See, I didn't go for very creative names there. So look for my
Yes.
name and you'll find me in any one of those. So,
Wonderful.
and the book will eventually, when it comes out, be available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and hopefully you'll all find it in your local bookstore. Our Four Seasons local bookstore in Shepherdstown will have it. So
Great, Leah. Leah, how do you nurture your soul?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Well, writing has been nurturing. It's been troubling my soul in a good way. I think, pushing me. I started out, I named this book about earth and soul. And then I went like, what the heck is soul? Like, what do I mean when I'm saying that? I noticed how often in my work I talk about heart. And I was like, what am I talking about when I'm talking about soul? So that was a real, a good stretching and nurturing and trying to understand natural world being among the trees. I have a thing about trees. So that's where I go. And actually in leading retreats, you mentioned Church of the Wild Two Rivers that we meet once a month. In a way, that opportunity to be in those conversations with others is so enriching for me.
Yeah. And I've been very lucky to attend a couple of those in the last few years. And it's a little bit of a distance for me, but I do the trek when I can because it's been soul enriching, I guess, for me to attend because it is in the midst of trees that you do this, in the field, in the midst of trees. And it's just, you're with like-minded people, there's a little bit of drumming, a little bit of meditating. Just being in a beautiful environment.
I often say, Brigitte, we're like-hearted people.
Yeah. I like that.
I don't know if we're like-minded or not because we don't spend a lot of time on the mind, but we are like-hearted. Yeah.
Yes, I like that. Yeah. I always like to throw out a quote. I found one that resonated for me in terms of our talk. It's the Dalai Lama who said, "It is our collective and individual responsibility to preserve and tend to the world in which we all live." And so thank you for doing that, Leah.
Oh, thank you. I'm so appreciative of the conversation. So that's enriching for me to be in these conversations. So thank you, Brigitte, and for the work you do with Uno Souls.
Thank you, Leah. And just as a last thing, if you don't mind leaving us with some words of wisdom.
Yeah, I keep wanting to offer words that that encapsulate it all, which I think is always challenging to do. So I guess what I would just say is to attend to the wisdom of the living world around us. We are not separate from nature. It's why you haven't heard me use that word a lot, because we tend to speak as if nature is different from human beings. And that human exceptionalism will not serve us well, either within our own hearts or within the work we need to do. What will serve us and serve the collective, the dream of the earth, is listening deeply and humbly, and attuning ourselves through our senses, through our heart and soul, to the wisdom that the world around us has always held and is so eager to convey to us, is waiting to share with us. is longing to share with us. And that's what our hearts and souls need. If we don't do that connecting, it breaks our hearts.
It's beautiful, beautiful, Leah. This is a powerful time to love each other, to unite, and to live in peace. Thank you so much for joining me, Leah. I honor the light in you.
And I in you, and in all beings around us.
Thank you so much for listening to Uno Souls Chat. You can find us at www.unosouls.com and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I would love to hear from you if you would like to chat with me. Have a beautiful week and see you at the next episode.